Let's go. A happy new year. A transfer portal eve. We are less than an hour away until you know what starts to get real. We're going to talk about that crazy ending of Ole Miss versus Georgia. Is it actually a bad thing for LSU that Ole Miss indeed won this game? It kind of sort of is. You do have to pay Lane Kiffin an extra $250K, but I don't think that is really important in the grand scheme of things, especially if you think Lane Kiffin is going to be the real deal. So, to me, the big LSU news today was Kyle Parker entering the transfer portal. And obviously, Kyle had an amazing bowl game. My phone blew up because we're obviously big Kyle Parker fans on this channel. We wax poetic about him versus Houston, becoming a better blocker and just being an overall better player in every facet of wide receiver play. But the truth is, you got to remember Kyle Parker was a big Cortez Hankton guy. And then at the same time, Hankton did get hired today by Ohio State. Um, the transfer portal is loaded with really good wide receivers. There are far better receivers than Kyle Parker currently in the transfer portal. That is the single most popular position to enter the portal. It is the most populous position. You could definitely find some buried treasure at wide receiver, as we just saw with Ole Miss. Most of their wide receivers outside of Caden Lee are transfers. So this is a position that has a lot of movement to begin with. So, the truth is, it's not that big of a loss. Okay. But that's the thumbnail image. All right. This is actually, to me, the big question. And this is Jay Smith. And I understand the Ole Miss fans are going to be in my mentions. Is this a bad thing for Lane Kiffin that Ole Miss won this game without him? And the answer to that is no, because Pete Golding in this game was not great. He was not a great head coach. This was a terribly mismanaged game from Ole Miss. And the fact that they were even down 21-12 is really crazy to me, considering Ole Miss just looked the better team today. And Kirby made a few mistakes in his own right, but at the same time, there are so many things that Pete Golding did in this game specifically that almost cost Ole Miss this entire shebang. And if you guys want, I could talk about this Sugar Bowl because it did just happen. Everything gets dated now in the transfer portal era. All right. So Golding early in the game, they were up 6-0, and then they were down 7-6. And then instead of kicking the extra point to go up 13-7, he went for two, up 12-7. They said that he's not an analytics guy in the broadcast booth. Early in the game, you should never go for two. Never. In the first quarter, early second half, which is when that play transpired, you should never go for two. Never. And he did. Then at the end of the first half, horrible clock management. That's more so on the player, if anything. You would like an experienced tight end to know you got to run out of bounds in that spot. Then, of course, the management at the end of the game from Pete Golding wasn't great either. Blowing a second half timeout on defense, which you should never do unless you have to do it. And then going rush 3, drop 8 on that 4th and 9 play was stupid. And then on the following 3rd and 9, he ran 2-man under. He has always done this. You want to know why Garrett Nussmeier had that crazy drive versus Ole Miss last year in a game that we had no business winning? It's because Pete Golding did the same thing. So, if anything, in this game tonight, I'm not just making an excuse for Lane Kiffin. The truth is, Golding was the worst coach on the field for Ole Miss because I thought their defensive game plan was actually really good. If you look at this game, Gunnar Stockton made ridiculous plays for the game to actually work. And then you get into offensively where Trinidad Chambliss was truly amazing. And then I want to discuss Chambliss here, okay? This game really did move the needle for Chambliss. I do think, as far as this final year of eligibility is concerned, I do think he wants to play another year of college football. But which quarterback in this NFL draft do you want over Trinidad Chambliss? Tell me, who is a better NFL prospect in this class than Trinidad Chambliss? It's not clear. It's really, really, really not clear. So I think at this point, the likelihood of him becoming a first round pick is a little bit higher than what many would expect. So for me, Chambliss was truly special in this game. You can get into a few different, like, kind of NFL y kind of things, but guy, he's good. And this is a Lane thing, but it's more of a Chambliss thing. A lot of what Chambliss did is because of the Weiss Lane Kiffin offense. It just is. But he's so damn good that he should have won the Heisman Trophy this year. I really do believe that. He didn't start the season. That was not on his own volition. If he started the season, he would have won the Heisman easily, or it would have been closer. And then at the same time, if Chambliss would have beat Georgia the first time around, even with not starting the season, he would have played in the SEC championship game. That game probably would have been versus Alabama. He probably wins that game. And, well, you guys know the rest of the story, right? He probably plays well enough in that game that his numbers, which we've shown plenty of times, Chambliss's numbers were better than Mendoza's numbers throughout the course of the season. Chambliss probably wins a Heisman. And you saw why. He is the best quarterback in college football. He is the best. I would take him over Mendoza. So, very interesting. Oh, the game's still going? They kept it going? I thought they called. Oh, okay. So what's the let's see what the All right, so they finally called it final. All right, so they did the pitchy woo woo at the end. Okay. And it ended up going for nothing. So we started a little early. Nothing wrong with that. But we welcome in Ronnie. We welcome in quite a few of you here. Poor game management by Kirby. Always go for the jugular when your defense can't stop the opposing offense of the fourth quarter. What should he have done? I think Kirby called an amazing game. I thought he coached this game really well. And I've developed a little bit of a Georgia following on Power Hour SEC. They have blown up my TikTok and Instagram. I'll say it once and I'll say it again until I'm blue in the face. This was Kirby's best coaching job by a mile. Before the season, I was not really high on this Georgia team. And if you actually pay attention to their results, a lot of the games that they won was just Kirby out coaching the other team. Now, does this Georgia team have a lot of talent? Yeah, per blue chip ratio, they're loaded. But this team never really was special. They won 4 games this year where it looked like they were not going to win. Florida, Tennessee, Ole Miss, and, God, I'm forgetting one. Auburn, when they were down for most of the game. And they went down basically emptying the clip. They had a miracle fourth down punt, fake punt. This wasn't that great of a Georgia team. If you were to look at the Kirby Smart Georgia teams, I'm not sure if it's a top 5 Georgia team. And he had them with the first round bye in the college football playoff. So there you go. But here's the thing. With this live stream, with that game being as crazy as it was, I honestly don't think this makes Lane look bad. I really don't. I really, really, really don't. But at the same time, Lane can also say, hey, this is still my offensive coordinator doing this. This is still my coaching staff doing this. Now, he does get an extra $250K. This does complicate things a lot, though. If we're being honest, this does complicate a whole heck of a lot for LSU logistically. LSU, from their side of things, they already have a plan in place for how they're going to handle the transfer portal, win or lose with this game tonight. So there was a meeting that the LSU coaching staff had, and Lane tweeted out a photo from the meeting, and there was walk-ons being served. I'm a big walk-ons guy. I get no money from them when I say that, but it's my mom's favorite restaurant, one of her favorite restaurants. But so they had this meeting to get ready for the transfer portal, and there were some coaches that were coaching in this game that were at that meeting, and this will still continue. All right, I would seriously doubt that, knowing where Ole Miss is right now, that they are going to move off of Lane, keeping things the way that they are. And Lane also has an incentive to keep the staff the same for Ole Miss because he's also getting bonuses, and it also makes him look good. All right. Bob, thank you for joining. We appreciate it. I'm looking to get at least 5 new members from this live, and I think we'll get there. And for me, the truth when it comes to building out this transfer portal roster, because there's 3 transfer portal targets I want to focus on here. The truth, though, is you would have liked Ole Miss to just lose and the coaches just take one little 60-minute drive up the road and get ready for the transfer portal tonight. So there are a few details that are important for how the next couple of days are going to operate. As far as like official visits are concerned, Moscona reported this, and on Monday is when you could start having visits and all of that, according to Moscona. And I've heard something similar, but LSU already has some guys ready to go. And the portal, which will open here in about an hour, I thought I would be done live streaming, but we decided to wait until the end of this crazy game. The thing that you must keep in mind about all of this, the portal being the way that they are now, every player is essentially replaceable. Every single one. The best quarterback in the sport was a backup. And, let's just take Kyle Parker, for instance. And I had a huge thing on Kyle Parker, but you guys wanted to talk the Sugar Bowl, which is fine. I want to do what all of us want to do. The truth about Kyle, his best game was a bowl game. All right. We have talked about bowl productivity. You look at some of his other production. Big touchdown at the end of the Texas A&M game in mop-up duty. All right. It was when we were out of it. Also, his best numbers, best play arguably came versus Southeastern. He had some other nice plays. He's probably our best pure slot receiver on this roster right now coming back. And he's gone. He went into the portal. But, man, if you were to look at me in the face and say, hey, Carter, would you rather a guy like Kyle Parker, or would you rather Parker Livingstone? And if you don't know who that is, he is a Texas wide receiver who can do it all. He can really do it all. You look at him and you think slot wide receiver. No, he can line up anywhere. And he kind of became Texas's guy at times this year. Texas had a wide receiver room, and it was supposed to be the Ryan Wingo show. And this year, especially early, Livingstone was that guy. And you're telling me that guy in the portal, who is very motivated, this is something that has happened in the last 5 hours, by the way. Parker Livingstone loves Texas. He went to Texas wanting to be a Longhorn for life, and he enters the portal. And they have one of their big reporters in Kirk Bowles say, hey, Texas is doing this so they can offer Cam Coleman a king's ransom. And you guys know Cam Coleman is my number 1 rated player in the transfer portal. And I think Cam Coleman is a real deal. And now there's this crazy report out there that Cam Coleman might want up to $4 million. And then you got to start asking, how big is your budget? If he's healthy from start to finish, he probably is worth $4 million, if we're being honest. If you're telling me I could get the best wide receiver in the conference to come play for my school next year, and I want to win now, it's probably worth it, especially if you want to go for it with Arch. I would take Cam Coleman 12 days out of 10 over Livingstone. But at the same time, you're going to get this guy that is obviously disgruntled with Texas, loved Texas, and he will get to play Texas on the schedule next year. I'll take that all day, every day. And there's a gazillion of these wide receivers you can get in the transfer portal that are better than Kyle Parker, who we like a lot, who has given his all to the university, has turned into a pretty respectable blocker, so on and so on. But at wide receiver, let's just say Kyle Parker was a similar production type of player and he was an offensive guard, not a big deal. Okay? Not a big deal. Oh, yeah, it opens at 12 Eastern, so it is open right now. Okay. I want to talk about some of the players that have already signed back with LSU. That the LSU official media account has already posted that they are coming back. And the reason that that's relevant, wink, wink, nod, nod, is that most of the time when an official LSU media account tweets something out, that means that there is paperwork involved. A signature is involved. We go back to the Richard Anderson thing, which, by the way, Richard Anderson and our guy Lamar Brown, they were at the Under Armour All-American game. And in particular, Lamar Brown was really good at the practices there, going up against the elite recruits, by the way. And Richard Anderson, of course, he signed, but we didn't have the official paperwork in. Okay? So why is that relevant? Well, when the LSU account tweets something out about a player signing or whatever, that means it's official. That means that there is a binding agreement that something has happened. So what I'll do, just to make sure we get like the hard news in from this game, I want to go through the players that have already announced that they are coming back. Okay. Now let's go with the one that's a no-brainer. He's definitely got a pretty nice sum of money. DJ Pickett. Okay. But you go down, PJ Woodland, year 3. And you even see on the graphic, when we don't have to hide this. I don't have to hide this. A signature. Okay. Aiden Anding is signed to come back for LSU. Jakeem Jackson has signed to come back for LSU. Remember, Jakeem's only cornerbacks coach in college has essentially been Corey Raymond. Came over from the Florida Gators. Michael Turner. This was a bit of a shocker. Signed to come back. This guy on your screen right now is faster than any of the corners that we have mentioned by a pretty nice margin. This is a special athlete when it comes to speed. He's just not that big of a guy. So far, and this is a Lane Kiffin walkout, hand in hand with Kim Mulkey. The superstar for LSU has been Corey Raymond. All right. And Corey's been the best coach on the staff over the past year. Obviously, we had the best corner room in the SEC. And, man, what a freaking job Corey did getting all these signatures. Okay, and this was a graphic. We'll get into Lane's tweets. We'll do our normal Lane Kiffin segment a little bit later in the broadcast tonight. All right. Now, before we continue, we are 288 strong on YouTube. Thank you so much. I don't mind going all night tonight. I DJ'd a huge New Year's Eve party last night, so I didn't go to bed till 4. Got food at a Whataburger. There's 2 different fights. So I feel like going until 4 in the morning. This Saturday, the biggest card show that we have ever done with the Shreveport Card Show is going down. My guy really worked hard in putting this together. Colvin, who's been on here quite a bit, it's only $8 to get in. 250 tables, and there is meet and greet information if you want to meet Dustin the Diamond Poirier. And we'll be set up there, and I'll be giving away a good bit of my collection. It's kind of gathering some dust over here. First person that shows up and finds me at my table, I'm giving you an LSU autograph. And by the way, I don't have any media obligations. Normally when I go do something like this, I'm interviewing an athlete or anything like that. I might still do some of that. But this, I just want to interact with the PHO audience and just everyone. Okay. So we'll see you this Saturday in Shreveport. Okay. Got some hottie toddies going on in the chat. Congratulations. Kidding. Go to hell, Ole Miss. Go to hell. Respectfully. Okay. Now, next thing. Where should LSU really swing for the fences? Is there a player that no one else has mentioned that LSU should seriously consider? Blow a load, if you will. Pause. I shouldn't have gone there. I do want to bring up one player to put on LSU's radar. All right. And the opinions on this player is mixed. But Coy Parrish, two-way safety out of Minnesota. I do think, and this will come off really biased, I do think A.J. Halsey's better than this guy. They're different types of players, and Halsey's obviously leaving. But I'm kind of in the camp that it would be nice to get another safety. It's not the biggest need on this team. And honestly, the superstars, as we've already mentioned, has been Corey Raymond. Corey already got a nice signature from all those players we just mentioned. And then at the same time, LSU had a situation unfold with Deshaun Spears yesterday. So Deshaun Spears announced he was going into the transfer portal. Then, to just a few hours later, get business done, and Spears is indeed coming back to Baton Rouge. And Spears was really good in the bowl game. And Spears was mostly really good throughout the season. I always say don't get too carried away with any bowl performance. I do think this bowl performance was big for Spears because he's mostly been a situational player instead of a guy that plays 80 snaps in a game like he did versus Houston. So I am on the Deshaun Spears bandwagon being a big-time safety next year. I would like to go get another safety. Now, before we get into some of the other portal news, you must look at the needs before we get into specific players. First big need is the offensive line. At first, I felt it was the quarterback position, but now that we know that this offensive line is going to be stripped down to the studs outside of the center position, you're going to need to bring in what? Maybe no less than 5 guys, burgers and fries included, in this transfer portal class. And it's going to cost more than what you pay at 5 guys, which for 1 burger, 1 fry, 1 drink, it's $43.72. And they'll say, well, at least they give you some extra fries for the bag. Well, that's not great enough. I'm sorry. Imagine feeding a family of 4. That's why they named it 5 guys. They named it 5 guys because, well, it takes 5 men's salaries to feed someone. So whatever the case may be, the offensive line is the most important position. And we get into the biggest name to enter the transfer portal today, which was Lance Hurd. Lance Hurd, Tennessee offensive lineman, started his career at LSU. His signature is on my PHL t-shirt over here when we interviewed him at a card show in Shreveport not too long ago. I say not too long ago. It was a few years ago, but it feels like it was just yesterday. So Lance Hurd leaves LSU after 1 season because he wants to play. And when you go into the transfer portal as a 5-star offensive lineman, you're going to get paid. So Tennessee takes care of him. He starts the last 2 seasons. In 2024, Lance Hurd was not good. He was bad. In 2025, he was better. In the big games, though, he struggled. Versus Illinois in the bowl game, Lance Hurd gave up the big sack that turned into a strip sack that turned into a touchdown for the other team. Had some issues versus Alabama. So would that be something you're open to? Are you open to it? I think at this point, knowing what we know about the portal, you can't choose to hold grudges. You've got to bring him back if he is open to coming back to LSU. Now, is he the most consistent offensive lineman? No. But the one thing that I've noticed watching this college football playoff is the number one thing that teams have struggled with. Edges have been compromised. The teams that have won has absolutely abused the edge. Miami, they have the best pair of edges in the entire shebang here. Suntarine Perkins, big game here. He was unblocked on that final play, but Ole Miss has had a lot of good edge player play over the past couple of seasons. So what do you need to do? You got to be able to protect that edge. And Lance Hurd is probably a better option than anybody on our team right now. So do you do that? Is that something you're open to? Well, the truth with Lance is that can move a little bit quicker in terms of you getting him back to Baton Rouge because he knows the lay of the land. That's not going to require a visit. The only thing it's going to require is Lance speaking with Eric Walford to see if that is even going to be a fit. You don't really want an offensive lineman that does not fit the coach. I think you can get away with disgruntled players under other position coaches, but not on the offensive line. That position needs to be cohesive, hand in hand with their position coach. Okay. Now, has Lance Hurd been a 5-star level player? No. So obviously price is going to play a role. And if you are a 5-star and you do come from an offense in Tennessee that's mostly been good, people will pay a premium. Okay. Now, who else? Well, there's a gazillion names you can go after in the portal. But for me, I'm open to Lance Hurd. Definitely open to it. Okay. Now, what was Lance's salary demand for him to come back to Tennessee? I've heard different things. I've heard different things. I've heard it was north of 1.5 million, which is what you normally pay for if it's an elite offensive tackle out there. Okay. I think most of you want to talk the Ole Miss game. All right. So here's what we're going to do. Whoever the next super chatter is, or let's just do that. The next super chatter will get to pick what I want to get to next, because that Ole Miss Georgia game was just so freaking lit. There's 1,000 different things I want to discuss, and I have to do a Georgia film study later this night anyway. But I just love toughness. I freaking love toughness. And Gunnar Stockton getting up from some of those hits, I don't know how he did it. He has taken some of the biggest hits in postseason play. He took one versus Texas that was basically an exorcism. And then today versus Ole Miss, dear Lord, what the hell was happening there? So shout out to Gunnar Stockton. And then something else about this, you want a Power Hour t-shirt? The links are down below, Daniel. Something else about this game that I found to be very interesting is none of these wide receivers outside of Zachariah Branch were of the elite variety when it comes to the transfer portal. And all of them are good, dude. All of them are good. All of Ole Miss's transfer receivers are good. Wallace is really good. Stribling is really good. Hal, thank you so much. Hal wants to stay on the Ole Miss thing. So let's do it. Beezy says, did you hear them yelling F Lane Kiffin? Yes, I did. All right. Normally at the 30-minute mark, we have to take a break, but our friends at Labor Therapy, they want to keep it moving. So big thanks to Labor Therapy, labortherapy.com. You don't have to go into the spot. So there we go. Special shout out to Thomas and the crew. All right. Now, for me, I wanted to save this topic because it's a little bit more of a later night thing because it's not really football related. But much was made about the decision of Lane Kiffin going to the game or not going to the game tonight. And I think he made the right decision to not go to the Sugar Bowl. Obviously, normally when you are a person of interest, you don't stay for the entire game. And you do that to avoid the mob of fans after the game. All right, so much was made about Lane Kiffin not staying till the end of the Houston game. I was okay with that. Because he is a guy that would get mobbed pretty quickly. And this was also a game where he probably wasn't going to stay till the end. Probably just make an appearance. But I really don't know what that appearance would have looked like. All right. If at any point Lane Kiffin would have been on the field at the Sugar Bowl, it becomes a very hazardous situation. What do we know? If there is any coach on the planet Earth that people love to throw things at, it's Lane Kiffin. We have seen that. We have empirical evidence of this happening. The only people on the planet Earth that wanted Lane Kiffin to step on that field are the mustard manufacturers. Because they know there would have been at least 50 bottles of yellow fluid thrown on the field. Because Lane attracts that, apparently. But in all seriousness, that was not a situation where Lane really needed to put himself into. That's just not what he needed to do. Then on top of that, while you're at the game, what if Ole Miss starts blowing them out? The cameras are going to find Lane Kiffin. Are you going to celebrate? How would you celebrate? I don't know. I just think he made the right decision to not go to that game. And I also think he made the right decision, and this was also out of Lane's situation, to be interviewed at that game. I don't think that would have been great. I really don't. I'm glad he went to the PMAC and supported our Lady Tigers, and we'll talk about that a little bit. As you guys know, I'm pretty passionate about LSU women's basketball. And just briefly on this topic, because I think that's why Hal super chatted. He is a season ticket holder of both basketball teams. I warned you guys how I felt about LSU's women's team playing such a soft non-conference and not playing in any close games. And tonight was their first close game in conference where things really start to matter. And you saw this was their first close game in the fourth quarter. And they fell apart. Now, the girl from Kentucky hit an absolutely amazing buzzer beater to beat us. But we didn't score basically in that final 5-minute stretch. And we do get a little static offensively in that stretch. But we'll get back to football here. Is Lane the reason why the women lost tonight? No, I don't think so. I think we were our own reason. Let's go to Sibley. He says, I was pulling hard for the Rebels. Lane recruited guys who could play. The quarterback is outstanding. Running backs are great. Outstanding team speed. I wonder what BK was thinking when he was recruiting. So let's talk about Kwan Lacey. I don't think Chambliss is going to get this waiver. I also don't think Chambliss really cares at this point, because if he keeps playing the way that he's playing, I mean, we know Mendoza is probably going to go number 1 overall, but where could Chambliss really go in the NFL draft? I'm serious. Fans are claiming that we lost because Lane was at the women's game. Well, those fans need to get a life. Okay? They really, really, really do. Now, next thing, as far as portal entries with LSU, this to me was the biggest. And, when we do one of these longer streams, you save the really juicy story for later, or one of them. This was something we hinted throughout the Lane process, that if Lane came to Baton Rouge and retained Blake Baker, I've said in the past that it was a 90+% chance that Whit Weeks was coming back. And he's back. And it's very important that he's back. So Whit Weeks coming back, that is probably going to keep Zach Weeks on the roster, who played a decent amount towards the end of the season. The linebacker play just doesn't have the same juice without Whit Weeks. So you look at a guy like Devon Keys, not nearly as good as Whit Weeks. A guy like Tylen Singleton, both of those young men played 80+ snaps. CJ Jim Coyley, who plays a different role, but kind of sort of in that linebacker room build, if you will. Whit Weeks just changes so much for what we're going to do. And you look at what Whit did this past year when he was healthy. Tackling was a little sloppy at times, but he was still good. And he's been good for 3 years. And now he's super motivated. Potential future father-in-law is now coaching the team. Your football father, if you will, and Blake Baker is back. This is a really good situation for him. Really, really, really good. Someone that knows the Baker defense. Someone that is returning when there's going to be so many new pieces on both sides of the line of scrimmage. I do think some familiarity is important, because we're returning no wide receivers, basically. No offensive linemen, basically. No quarterbacks. We do return Harlan Berry, but he is younger. You do return Trades Green. He is a tight end, though. On defense, though, who was your leader going to be with Whit Weeks not being there? It could have been Cooley, who's played a lot of football. But Whit Weeks is that guy. And I think it's going to be really big for LSU that he's back. And there's probably some guarantees attached to it. I think he is the odds-on favorite to be the number 18 next year. I do think that was, I will say there was quite a few people that I speak to regularly that were shocked by that decision. But that goes into some of the other Brian Kelly decisions that I made in the past. So he's not the only one that makes that one. But I think Whit Weeks should have been number 18. Let's go to Doug Knows. That LSU offensive staff looked good tonight. It really did. So Charlie Weiss is a really good play caller. He is a really, really, really good play caller. And this will be more for the film study on Power Hour SEC. But we will do one on Chambliss at some point for the SEC channel. One thing that Georgia did that was different tonight is they played more aggressive with their coverages. So you can go to the SEC channel And basically what Ole Miss did versus Georgia the first time they played earlier this year, where you could argue that the offense played better in that game than they did tonight, is Georgia just played off. They were very conservative with their coverages. And Ole Miss just played pitch and catch. Their longest touchdown of the season was a 75-yarder where he broke a tackle and was able to house it. Okay? So for me, I was pretty pumped up to see Georgia playing more aggressive. I don't like it when teams play soft coverage. I like aggressive coverages. Call me old school. And what Ole Miss did was they adjusted to it. Protection stepped up. Georgia didn't really have an elite pass rusher this year. And then you get to that final slot fade ball to Stribling. That is the single play that was the most productive for LSU in 2023. Slot fade to a big target. And that's what we want to get back to, getting vertical with our pass game. You got to remember one thing that Weiss had to overcome was Lacey not playing his best game. 4th and 1, get stuffed. The fumble earlier in the game. Shoulder situation. And they still find a way. Now, some of the things that Chambliss did in this game was him making circus plays happen. But at the same time, there were guys open on those circus plays if Chambliss ran the plays that was designed, but there was pressure. Let's go to Doug. Happy New Year, PHL. It is interesting, though, because Mike Bobo is going to take a lot of heat for this game. He really is. But the truth is, the only thing I strongly disagreed with him with was the final sequence of downs. That final 3rd down decision to let Oscar Delp, who had 1 catch on the night, decide the game was stupidity. What had worked for you in that game were rollouts. So 1st and goal, you had a good run with Gunnar Stockton. 2nd and goal, zone read play gets blown up. That was Golding's best defensive call. He guessed right. He had the perfect call for it. Stockton had to hand it off. The backup center for Georgia got mauled and set up 3rd and goal from the 6. So Ole Miss had no timeouts left. They had to blow the timeout there on 3rd and 6. What I would have done is I at all times want to optimize my chances of winning the game when the other team has as little seconds as possible to do something to decide the game on their end. So there was 50 plus seconds left to go in the game, and Ole Miss had no timeouts left, and it was 3rd and goal. I am running some type of quarterback draw, a rollout, something a little bit more completion friendly. Because if you get stopped, you can run that clock all the way down and kick the game-tying field goal. And you're able to middle it. Instead of running the play that they ran to Oscar Delp, which is a somewhat lower percentage play, it's not really Gunnar Stockton's game. Gunnar Stockton's one of the best red zone quarterbacks I have ever seen. He had so many ridiculous plays in that game. The one thing you can't do in that spot is turn him into a pocket passer. Like, that's a good call if Ty Simpson's your quarterback, not Gunnar Stockton. That was a really bad play call on 3rd down because it was an incompletion. Let's go to PJ Thornton. They said we couldn't do it. Lane said we couldn't do it. LSU said we couldn't do it. I don't know who they is. Lane said we couldn't do it. Lane has said the exact opposite. All right. LSU said we couldn't do it. Well, congratulations. You won 1 Sugar Bowl. What do you want? A cookie? Huh? But for real, give Chambliss and Ole Miss, and that defense in particular, a lot of credit. Weeks will be 18 next season. Green will be 7. I don't think they're that young. I'm kidding. I know you're talking about jersey numbers. But yeah, I think Whit's going to be number 18 next year. Now, next thing. Let's talk about the LSU offense. And for me, the one thing about the LSU offense is, what is Caden Durham going to do? So we discussed Whit Weeks coming back, and now I want to get into Harlem Berry. So Harlem Berry's coming back. The number one sign that Harlem Berry was coming back, there was actually 2 of them. And once again, are there sources I talk to in Baton Rouge and just throughout often? Sure. But there are signs that you can see which players are a priority. When DJ Pickett and Trades Green got Nike NIL deals and they were in the LSU commercials, that means they're probably not going anywhere. And then Kevin Smith gets hired by LSU. That dialogue already started. Started pretty quickly. And it needed to, because Harlem was a big Frank guy. So you get Harlem Berry back. Now we see what's going to happen with Caden Durham. This makes the Kawan Lacey situation very strange, because the portal is obviously starting now. And then the way this calendar is going to shape out is going to be interesting. If Kawan Lacey wants to go, does he say, hey, I'm entering the portal, this is my final go with Ole Miss? How are Ole Miss fans going to deal with that? What if Ole Miss players that played tonight, they want to go to Baton Rouge, or maybe not want to go to Baton Rouge? What if you're an Ole Miss player and you still have eligibility and you played well in this game tonight and you want to strike while the iron's hot? You could say, hey, I am entering the portal. You can come after me, but I'm finishing out what I am doing right here. Forever LSU. Thank you for the super chat. Trades is not going anywhere. Yeah, so Cortez Hankton did get hired today, and we will, because I like Cortez. I did. I really, really, really did. Personally. But this was a move that needed to be made. And good luck to Ohio State, and good luck to him in Columbus, because he's replacing one of the best wide receiver coaches the sport has ever seen. Okay? Now, here's the one thing I want to say to Ole Miss fans, because I have been very aggressive to you. All right? And I still believe Lane should have coached the playoff. I think you won in spite of your head coach tonight. But give Coach Golding a lot of credit. He won the game. Ole Miss fans, you're right. You could dunk on me all you want, because I thought Georgia was going to win this game. I did. But you were the better team. It was pretty clear you were the better team. What I will say, though, is there is a piece of me, outside of it helping LSU, that you losing makes the calendar a lot better for everyone. But you won. I am glad that you won, because the missed face mask in that game was the worst missed call I can remember in a college football playoff game. And for those that didn't see it, a Georgia defensive tackle, I can find a clip of this somewhere. Okay, here we go. I already have one pulled up. This is the worst missed call I have ever seen in a college football playoff game. I really have no idea how this one makes you wonder. Okay, so the umpire, God bless, dude. That was not called. And I know I'm in super slow-mo here, but this is one that Ole Miss did get stopped. They did have to punt, and that allowed Georgia to go down and tie the game. If Ole Miss had lost this game, Ole Miss fans would have bitched about it for now until the end of eternity. Okay? And they would have had a right to do that. I would have been like, yeah, you do have a point, even though your coach gave up a 4th and 9 doing a rush 3, drop 8. But today was a good example of why you need a big-time head coach. And you look at a guy like Kirk Cignetti. You look at a guy like Mario Cristobal, who I've been very critical of. Those guys are great coaches. You know, Cristobal was hired basically the same year as Lincoln Riley, the same year as Brian Kelly. And he has lapped them. And yeah, he's in the ACC. Sure. Let's go to Sibley. What will Lane's recruiting overall philosophy be? Brian Kelly wanted to build a team around tight ends and offensive line. What do you make of all 3 Texas new assistant coaches being from New Orleans? Can LSU win 10 in 2026? Yeah, so I don't know. I know they hired Jaluk. But can LSU win 10 games in 2026? Let's start from the back of this super chat. And the answer is we don't know. This is a schedule. It all comes down to what happens in the portal. And then you'll start getting more like official game predictions from your boy Carter B. Lane's recruiting philosophy, he actually answered this question with the Cole Kubelik when he was in the booth. And he said, yeah, we're going to be a portal heavy team, but a big reason why he came is to recruit out of high school. And, you know, a lot of this is going to come down to evaluations, and a lot of this is going to come down to belief. So, you know, today was the first time I sat and watched a full Oregon Ducks game. And it doesn't matter who you are when it comes to college football. It is hard to sit and watch a full game. All right, because there's 1,000 different games going on. And this season, I had not gotten to sit and watch a full Oregon game. I watch a lot of their fourth quarters. And the thing that really blew me away is how many Oregon true freshmen and young guys that they have that are so freaking good. And you immediately think, oh, it's got to be DeCorian Moore, the wide receiver that was committed to us and then went to Oregon, and he's a stud. But that corner, number 4, looked like Darrelle Revis today. They're running backs. They have 2 true freshman running backs. They're studs. Absolutely stud muffins. So I'm hoping we get the same thing out of what we got out of Brian Kelly's first recruiting class in 2022. And we have dudes that can really take our team to the next level in the year 1. Now, what do you make of all 3 Texas? Okay, we already answered that. Brian Kelly wanted to build a team around tight ends and offensive line. Clifford says, how do I think Ole Miss will do against Miami? Miami has a really good front 7. Yeah, so you play back-to-back Georgia quarterbacks here. Carson Beck. Miami's a different defense than Georgia's. All right, so they're really strong at the edge. Obviously, Bain and 3 are their best players. They're superstars. They'll both have a good shot at being first-round picks. And they are coached by Jason Taylor, father of Mason, Pro Football Hall of Famer, friend of the channel. And then you get into their defense. Scott 0 is a really good player. 13 for them is a good player as well. And they're just solid. I mean, They are really solid on the back end there. They're really well coached. They went and got the defensive coordinator, whose name slips my mind right now, and he's a younger guy. What is it, Corey Hinderman? And he's good. They get sexy on defense. They let their front four do the work, and they'll move their defensive linemen around. They are so good up front. The problem they're going to have, though, is Ole Miss just moves so much faster. Morton wasn't really that great of a QB. Texas Tech has not really played a whole lot of teams this year. And honestly, what you'll see in these college football playoff games is a lot of the teams that make it to the college football playoffs are the teams that don't play anyone. So you look at Texas Tech, part of the reason why I like Texas Tech is Sam Leavitt beat them. All right. And I'm pretty high on Sam Leavitt. I think he's really, really, really good. And that's the only game that they lost against a really good quarterback at their place where they almost came back and won it. But other than that, their two best wins were wins versus BYU, who's a good team, not a great team. So they come out today and they get shut out. Probably the worst 12-team playoff performance we've seen. Offensively, they just did nothing, and their defense was more than good enough to win that game today. But the thing that was really interesting about Oregon is just how physical they were. They truly, outside of the offensive line versus their defensive line just wreaked havoc. And then obviously their secondary played really well as well. So yeah, you look at that matchup. I do like Ole Miss at this point. This is a really good Ole Miss football team. And the thing that's really crazy is I still think Ole Miss's team last year would be favored versus this version of Ole Miss. Okay, I think the top echelon of college football, outside of Indiana, obviously, it's just not as good this year. So the way we viewed college football last year was the top of the sport wasn't really that great. I think this year it's the same thing, but the top of the sport isn't really that great. Again, I think the two best teams were Indiana and Ohio State. Isaiah wants to talk about Iverson Hooks, a wide receiver out of UAB. Yeah, so LSU did have contact, all right? And there's going to be some receivers that you bring in that might not be one of the biggest names that you can think of. I also know, and this was something Nakos reported, by the way, I don't know as much about this second one, and I could be getting the names confused here, but T.Y. Hilton's son. Yeah, T.Y. Hilton has a son that plays college football, if you want to feel old. They're also looking at him, all right? So, and I keep going back to this about George McDonald, who's a wide receivers coach. You do begin to think, man, do we really need to go get a big wide receiver? Or do we just portal it out, get some different names, and just kind of play it by ear? I want to there was one thing I wanted to point out. I didn't write this down, but I know there was something else I wanted to get to before we skedaddle here. I'll pull up. Iverson hooks his full stats. And I'll be honest with you, I've not really watched him, Isaiah. 72 catches, 927 yards, 7 touchdowns, 12.9 receiving yard average. Is on the older side, so he'll be going into year 5. Okay. Had an 11 catch, 172 yard, 3 touchdown game versus Memphis. So yeah, I'm not done any real research. The only thing I know is that LSU has made contact. Now, Nakos has also reported that. I have also not heard anything as far as. Let me make sure I get. T.Y. Hilton's son is a college football player for Wisconsin, Eugene Hilton Jr. Four-star. Didn't really play a whole lot this year. Let's go to Chance. Carter, talk about how the overrated the SEC appears to be. Yeah, so, this is part of why I think the SEC going to a 9-game conference schedule is important. Because you do open yourself up to these kinds of arguments when you don't do well in the bowl games. Because everybody says that the SEC is the strongest schedule, and there's 7 teams in the SEC that have stronger schedules than the second or third best team in the Big Ten or whatever. And those things could still be true and you not have a good postseason. But Indiana just throttles Alabama. Illinois beat Tennessee. Illinois also beat a really good South Carolina team that many felt should have been in the playoff. Iowa beat a Vanderbilt team that everyone thought should have been in the playoff. Both of those teams, while there were some, changes, if you will, they had their quarterback still playing the game, and the other team just still win. This is Illinois. All right, and they're a good team. They play a different style than quite a few teams in the SEC. And, a lot of people, and we lost to Houston. We weren't really that good of a team. Texas A&M had a bad bowl showing. Alabama and Oklahoma was an SEC on SEC game. Alabama gets throttled. Texas does beat Michigan. That was a great game. Great arch game, too. So, yeah, I mean, was the SEC overrated this year? I don't know if the bowls necessarily tell that. But I did feel when I watched the games this year that, yeah, it's a brutal schedule. And, yeah, you do factor in the portal and the bowl games and all of that. But this bowl season, and then, you have last year where Tennessee just gets wiped off the field. And then you have a situation where Arizona State almost beats Texas. It took a 4th and 13 for that to happen. It's been a tough go at it in the expanded college football playoff. It really has. All right. And the thing you get into when you get, especially now in the portal era, where you go from this conference versus that conference, is that now with the talent truly being dispersed, we really know less about these teams than we ever have known. Because there's just not really a clear hierarchy. I just don't think, and I really did feel this way. I was watching the game with my father a little bit earlier. And all I kept saying was, how in the world, in a Rose Bowl, is Indiana blowing the brakes off of Alabama, and Indiana being the team that is a 1 seed and Alabama being a 9 seed, playing a neutral site postseason game in California. Y'all, that is a basketball game. That's an NCAA tournament round of 32 game. And now it's reversed. Alabama's got an elite basketball program and Indiana's mid. But there's just not a whole lot we know. What about NIL? How much has NIL changed? Well, the thing that we don't know, and some people know, but we don't know what each player is costing. We don't know what the cap is. We don't know if there is a cap. There isn't one, but there is one. It's $20 million. But then you can also spin this. And what the hell is Deloitte doing? What's the point of the NCAA? What's the point of existence? It's a weird thing. It's a weird thing. Let's go to Ronnie. Do you think not having a solid offensive line will hurt quarterback transfer portals choosing to come to LSU? No. No. You just trust the coach to figure that out. And the truth is, every single quarterback in America is playing behind a bad offensive line. Maybe outside of Mendoza. Nobody has a good offensive line. And if you did have one, more than likely one of them got hurt, and you don't have any good backups, because if you're a good backup offensive lineman, just go into the portal and you get $1 million. Okay. The one quarterback that's very interesting for me is Eli Holstein. It's very interesting. Dual threat, can move, Louisiana native, does have true doubters, chip on his shoulder. Zachary High School. Is that someone that would be willing to join a quarterback room that has other bodies in there? Chance to talk about Joel Rogers going into the portal. Now we can get into that. I was going to go through a few other individual players that have made decisions. Yeah, Joel was a special teamer. He will always be known for at LSU being the only player in the history of college football, or at least in the history of LSU football, to have had the opposing team's coach punch you in the face. Now, we have had LSU players punch other people in the face, and we've had other LSU players get punched in the face themselves. All right. Like that time Kev Falk almost ended the life of Jimbo Fisher's nephew. Then you also, and he restrained himself. He should have just demolished that kid. And then you had the Miami LSU fight. There's quite a few of them. Jacoby, everybody welcome Jacoby to the channel. Looks like we got some air traffic control going on. I always love you guys, man. That's crazy. It's kind of funny how the air traffic controllers, I just love that. You guys are the coolest dudes on the planet. And there's just all that asphalt. That has a lot of asphalt that you guys have to cover. You want to talk about Nick Marsh? Ooh. Baller. Certified stud. Certified stud. Okay. And dude, there's some people going after Kim in this game. Dear Lord. God bless. This is a crazy Kim Mulkey stat. Crazy. From Reed Darcy of the Athletic, the Advocate. He says Kim Mulkey has not beaten an SEC team ranked in the AP top 12. 5 losses to South Carolina, 2 to Texas, and 1 tonight to Kentucky. I think that stat's a little unfair, considering, you could make any stat not look great. Top 12 is kind of a weird number. But that is crazy, if that is indeed true, that we've not beaten like a marquee SEC team. And part of that is because the women's conference isn't as deep. And for those that don't know, if way past the portal, when it gets into NCAA tournament time, we get really heavy into women's basketball. Everybody, welcome Hanson to the channel. What are the chances Trinidad follows his staff to LSU? It's very little, because are you really leaving that situation? Okay. Are you really, really, really leaving that? And the problem is you're probably not going to get an extra year of eligibility. I do think Kawan Lacey is a relatively good chance that he follows Kevin Smith to LSU. It would be wild, though, knowing Kawan's relationship with Kevin and knowing Harlem Berry's close relationship with Frank, and it was very close, that those two have their coaches swap, but those two players stay. It could very well happen. Okay. Now, we go to everybody's favorite segment right after this break. What did Lane Kiffin tweet tonight? Power Hour Network listeners and viewers, you might be consuming this content with that crick in your back that you've been trying to get rid of for so long. Take this as your sign today to book your appointment with LabourdTherapy.com. In the Lafayette region, there is no one that you will find that cares more about any different type of pain that you might have than the team at LabourdTherapy.com. Book today. Once again, that's LABORDE therapy.com, or you can visit one of their 5 locations all throughout the Lafayette region. Alrighty, the world's favorite segment, the best segment in PHL history. What did Lane tweet today? We need to come up with a jingle. Somebody AI me a jingle, and I'll give you $10 right now. What a great finish. So much fun. Only 2 more to go. Ole Miss football. Oh, Lane's loving this. You're telling me I get $250K per dub? I get a $1 million bonus from LSU to win a natty? Lane Kiffin tweeting out the Trinidad and Tobago flag. Portal is open. Lane tweets that out. Pete Damel tweeting out that Whit Weeks is coming back. Elite recruits at the Under Armour All-American game are high on Lane Kiffin and LSU. So I wanted to save this for a little bit later as well, because it is about Peyton Houston. He is at the Under Armour game. He is balling out all the time because he's just that dude. And, at these All-Star games, they have 2027s participate in these All-Star games. And Peyton Houston is there. And, man, he's just impressive. I mean, I understand I'm watching him throw in just scrimmages, if you will, or just like stupid practice drills, but the dude can just flat out fling it. Lane tweeting out the hype video about the transfer portal opening. And you see some clips of some portal guys, Mansour Delane. Lane retweeting and showing some love for walk-ons. Now, I don't know Lane's situation. I'm going to follow walk-ons. I'm serious. They are not paying me to say this. I was doing this before Lane did this. Walk-ons is fire. It's just fire. And so that's Lane wearing a walk-ons hat, a white t-shirt, blue jeans, and some pandas. Okay, and then Lane, of course, is retweeting everybody that's coming back. He's retweeting a segment here. Coach Saban saying that the college football calendar should change. Okay. Get a few more retweets here. Also, Gary Danielson retiring. LSU fans hated Gary Danielson, and I never understood why. I am a little biased. I used to interview Gary every year at SEC Media Days. We'd email back and forth from time to time. Really nice guy. I never thought he just hated LSU. I never really got that from the broadcast. But maybe it's just me. Peter Burns tweeting out and Lane Kiffin retweeting him. Let's go to this from Dan Wolken. One takeaway is that it discomforts a lot of college football fans to know a lot of teams who have won national championships in the old era would have lost in a tournament. And then Lane agrees. He says, yes, now you have some teams having to win 3 extra playoff games just to get to the old championship game. So I will opine on this. Roby, thank you for the super. Do we get Womack back from Ole Miss to play the edge? I'm not as high on Womack having his best season at Ole Miss. He's still a very good player, top 100 player, top 100 recruit who was coming on at the end of the year for LSU last year. But I'm not sure if that's the direction I would go. But I'll opine on Lane's tweet here because it is the segment. I don't necessarily agree with this. Theoretically, it is correct. There are some teams that would have struggled to win more games to win it all. But for the most part, most of the teams that I feel have won the college football national championship was the team that would have won in the playoff format anyway. Because back then we had more dominant teams. So is 2018 Clemson really losing in a tournament? No, they have by far the best team. Is 2019 LSU losing in a tournament? Probably not. Is 2020 Alabama losing in a 12-team tournament? So, yeah, a lot of different things change from the BCS to where we are now. But I think the bigger talking point from Dan and Lane here is that you have to treat a 12-team college football playoff winner so differently than even the 4-team playoff. The 4-team playoff still felt like the BCS in many ways because you couldn't lose more than 2 games to have a shot at winning this thing. In the old BCS, I believe it would have been, per their metrics, the same top 2 that we would have had here would have been an Indiana-Ohio State rematch. So Zach Weeks is coming back. We talked about that a little bit earlier. There's Lane's nephew and Lane's son in the LSU practice facility, the weight room. Charles Ross coming back. We mostly focused on the DBs from earlier. Lamar Brown. We talked about him and his big day at the Under Armour All-American game. And Richard Anderson also got some love as well. Once again, I don't take too much away from who had a great day at this All-Star practice. But it is something when, these guys are saying, hey, you look this good versus the best of the best. Okay. All the game day experts did pick Georgia to beat Ole Miss tonight. And then basically some other stuff that we touched on a little bit earlier. Lane Kiffin did go to the supper club last night. There he is with the missus. Love to see it. All right. Would you eat at, I believe this is the supper club menu. I've never been to the supper club. I don't know if I have supper club money. I'm not really a Wagyu guy. A5. You're kind of poor if you've never heard of scary eerie Wagyu. I'd probably go veal parm. Veal parm sounds good right now. A 47 spot for a veal parm. I can get down with that. West Weeks going to the East-West Shrine Bowl. Congratulations to you, West. Okay. A retweet of the governor. And there you go. How would you like to live in this crib if this is indeed Lane's house? That's a nice-ass pool. There's everybody's favorite segment. Miami lost to Syracuse last year. Yeah, congratulations to you, godson. All right, here's what we're going to do. In the next 5 to 10 minutes, I'm going to answer as many questions as we possibly can. We should have some portal announcements the next time we go live, which will be tomorrow at 6 p.m. One quarterback is already off the board, and it's not really a shock. Rocco Becht, per the national guys, is leaning towards going to Penn State, following his head coach. I think Miami's good enough to win it all. All right, so one thing that's going to drive me nuts, one thing that is going to absolutely rip my face into 5 different pieces is people talking about the ratings. God bless people are going to talk about these ratings. And I can't actually wait to see the ratings. If you want to know how healthy of a spot college football is in, if the ratings for these upcoming games surpass the ratings of last year or just any other playoff, then college football is really cooking. It is really cooking. So what happened today? Georgia lost. Georgia draws a far bigger number than Ole Miss. Indiana beat Alabama. Alabama draws the biggest number in the sport. Ohio State lost. Ohio State arguably has the biggest fan base, arguably the most valuable team in all of amateur athletics. So those big three schools are out. Miami's in a big city, but it's not a blue blood. And judging by, their attendance at games, most of their fans do watch on TV, so I'll give them that. But to me, if the ratings are higher, then the College Football Playoff Committee is licking their chops. Let's go to Pegasus. Do I think Lamar Brown could play both ways? I think for him, he wants to play defense. He obviously played some offense today. If I were advising LSU, I would use him as a defensive lineman early. Even though he provides so much more value for your team as an offensive lineman with the way your roster is currently constructed. I honestly enjoyed watching him on the offensive line more than the defensive line. What I would also say, though, is he could play defense, and then in short yardage situations, you use him as an extra offensive lineman or as a big blocking tight end H-back kind of guy because he's athletic enough to do that. But he's good, man. Lamar Brown's a really good football player. Got some hate on my Pete Golden comments. Hooks, yeah, just his official visit will be next week. But he's got a large official visit list. Wisconsin, Indiana, Oklahoma State, LSU, Auburn, Oregon, and Louisville. Could you imagine being Indiana in the middle of your like the single most magical season of your world, and your biggest concern for January 4th is going to be, I hope a transfer wide receiver of UAB out of UAB has a good time in Bloomington. Kind of crazy. It really is. I do give Ole Miss a lot of credit in one area. All right, one thing that they got correct, and they got it correct in a big way, is they were close I wouldn't say they were close, but there was a push by some to have Joe Judge be the college football playoff coach for the Ole Miss Rebels. Crazy. Absolutely crazy. And he was the one that was really flubbing up some situations on the sideline. God, the camera hated them some Joe Judge tonight. God. Brandon says we need to recruit some true power backs. It would be nice to get a bruiser. Quan Lacey's a big dude, man. Let's go to It's Your Highlights 5102. Hey, I'm new. Newly subbed. Welcome. What are your thoughts on the future of the quarterback situation? What are the odds we get Chambliss and or Lacey after tonight's results? Yeah, I won't talk too much about the second question because we have discussed this quite a bit. Chambliss and his situation. And with Lacey, I hate it for him because as a running back, he just realized how difficult it is to take as many carries as he has and stay healthy. His shoulder is really messed up, by the way. It's partially why he fumbled tonight. And it would be nice for him to cash in after this season. Now, I will say historically, SEC backs that carry a wide load, they don't get hurt as much as you would think the next season. But it is something you do worry about as a running back in particular. So you want to cash in. You know, Texas has money to spend. They're going after the biggest names. They went and got a big name or running backs coach who is willing to punch the other team's players. But yeah, I think Lacey is definitely in the mix with Coach Smith being around. Now, the future QB situation. So, to my understanding, LSU really likes Brennan Sorsby. And we touched on some of the reports made by some of the Texas people. And Sorsby's just good. I love me some Brennan Sorsby. And my patrons know that would be my number 2 guy. I'm a big Sam Levitt guy. And I think those are 2 quarterbacks LSU will heavily pursue. And at this juncture, I would think it would be one of those 2 guys. But these are 2 of the better transfer portal quarterbacks. So the likelihood of you landing him is going to be slim because everybody wants him. I will say, as far as Sorsby, Texas Tech getting beat in the fashion that they got beat today is going to make those billionaires say, hey, we really got to go get a quarterback. Sorsby might really be the guy that we need. And they are definitely going to overpay for whichever quarterback they feel is the best. So I will share this. The scuttlebutt is that Brennan Sorsby to Texas Tech was going to happen. All right. That's how many felt that do the insider thing more than me. And I say to any new subscriber, super chat or anything, I'm never going to build a channel based on inside information. Okay. A lot of that is fed by agents, especially now that agents have become a more prominent force in college football. I mean, they always have from the coaching side, but now you have them with the players, and some of these agents aren't even regulated or officially certified and all of that. Just not something on. And I do talk to a few agents, but it's not like something I love to do. I'm not like close with any of them, but I do think Sorsby is a guy that I would love to be the next quarterback at LSU. The downside, of course, is when he played the better teams, he wasn't as good. And that's the case for a lot of different guys. And to follow up, Deuce Knight out of Auburn. I love him. I think you would get a better price as well. I really do. I think you would get a pretty good price on that because he didn't do anything. He had one big game versus Mercer. And there's going to be a bunch of buyer beware on why did this five-star quarterback not get more actual game reps in his first season at Auburn when the team was as bad as it was and the quarterback situation was as bad as it was. So if you really like him, you're probably going to get a better price. Let's go to Christian. Your boy Blake thought Alabama, Indiana would be close. Your boy doesn't know ball. Yeah, I really liked Indiana in this game today. I really did. And I started watching Alabama more closely. I did an Alabama film study before I did this show tonight. And normally I wait and do it the next day, but I was like, the Sugar Bowl is great. Let me just cut this real quick. So I didn't watch every Ty Simpson rep from today, but I did break down most of them. And I've broken down most of Ty Simpson's reps throughout the course of the season. And anyone that actually watched Alabama this year, it was really our game that exposed them. When they only beat us 20-9, a lot of that was Nuss and our team just not being good. But Alabama was definitely, to me, the worst team left in this field. I don't think. I mean, obviously, the way Texas Tech played was, it was what it was, and Alabama played a better team. But, God, Alabama hadn't been good for a while. Oklahoma, if they just catch a simple 3rd and 3, that changes the game from it being at least 20-7 to then it being 17-10. And that was a big play in that game. And then you threw a pick 6 that wasn't even a great play by the defender. You just threw it right to him. Miscommunication. And it was entirely on the quarterback. So it was a lot of smoke and mirrors, their win versus Oklahoma. We see how difficult it is to beat a team twice. And you then get this game where they get blown out. I was not in the least bit shocked by that. When you see the only thing that really changed things was how bad Ohio State started and how bad Texas Tech started and played today. Well, the same thing was true with Indiana. I mean, they got sacked a few times early in the game. They didn't score their first touchdown until the second quarter. But Alabama had been so bad that it really didn't matter. It really did not matter. Okay? So, yeah. But I get more things wrong than my wife. My wife is better at picking games than me. And I get paid to talk about this. Y'all throw some clap emojis, by the way, for It's Your Highlights. His first ever comment was a super chat. I really appreciate you, man. I need a bunch of clap emojis. I think Van Buren under this coaching staff could really break out. But then again, I think most quarterbacks behind a good offensive line with this coaching staff will thrive in Baton Rouge. I don't think that. No. I think Michael Van Buren is a guy with a somewhat limited ceiling. He's not particularly fast. He's not particularly big. Arm lacks some real torque on balls that do require zip, which means that the ball, when throwing from one hash to the other, dies. All right. You can go look at the games yourself, and you'll see a lot of passes that are just kind of in the ground at the ankles of the wide receiver. I believe there was at least 6 of those I counted in Van Buren games this year. So, yeah, I mean, you look at his positives, not a quarterback that is ashamed to keep his eyes down the field. You saw that his first year at Mississippi State. Does throw an overall really good sideline deep ball. Is willing to put the team first to his own, dismay, if you will, burning his red shirt for the sake of the team, which should not go unnoticed because he literally had nothing to play for. Well, Carter, he could have impressed everyone and won over the team. I don't know. I don't know about that. But I just don't think I could talk myself into him being the guy next year. But he did something that I think a lot of people should give him credit for, which is burning the red shirt. I think Simpson's coming back. So yeah, it's a little bit lighter. We'll do a few personal questions. How was my day? Well, thank you, BZ. So I DJ'd a big party. It started with the midnight ball drop. And yeah, it was wild. There's a lot of people out there. Not used to being that style of DJ. I mostly just DJ like private parties. I'll do like your occasional. It's my 3rd year in a row doing a New Year's thing, and it was mostly smooth. Mostly smooth. As with a lot of these things, there's always a hiccup. But that was fun. A lot of fun. So my day started with that. Then I watched the full Oregon game. I wanted the full Dan Lanning experience. And I wish I would have gotten those 3 hours back with the way Texas Tech's offense looked. And the worst thing is Texas Tech's defense played pretty good in that game. Then at the end of that game, in between the gap of that game, I went and ran a couple of miles, threw the football with some of the kids in the neighborhood. Got to see my mother-in-law's dog, who's kind of become my dog. And then a Ty Simpson film study. And outside of that, just getting the show ready for tonight. Your highlights follows up. Not right now. Yeah, I'm with you, though. Definitely not right now. I think this ends with him going to Tulane and just lighting it up. Or something like that. But I would like to see a red shirt built into his timeline where he can have an extra year. Frankie STTDB cannot have Ole Miss win a natty. Go Canes. Yeah, unfortunately, that would suck in a lot of different ways. It would suck because, Lane's pocketbook gets very heavy from our own, bank account, if you will. Then the pressure on Lane himself goes way up, right? For Lane, the pressure is mostly like from LSU for you to go out there and win something big. But then if Ole Miss wins it without you, the pressure on you goes way up. Now, the question that everyone wants to know is, does Ole Miss give Lane Kiffin a championship ring? I don't know. But anyone who claims to know which team is going to win this is crazy. Because I did feel going into today that Alabama was the worst team left. So Indiana throttling them isn't like the most impressive thing, but it's still very impressive. And then they got to play Oregon for a second time. Ole Miss won't give Kiffin a ring. I disagree. I think they will. Because why, as an Ole Miss fan, would you care if he got a ring? I'm serious. This is a crazy photo right here. This is absolutely crazy. Charlie Weiss on the Notre Dame sideline. This is him in 2007. So let's do some simple math here. He's 32 years of age now. So in 2007, he would be what in that photo? 14? Crazy, dude. It doesn't even look real. So that's a weird thing. When you look at him, he's 32 years of age, but he's got more coaching experience than some people in their 40s or just being on the sideline. Yeah, I do some LSU baseball stuff, but I'll never claim to be the LSU baseball guy. I do have an autograph. I have a lot of LSU baseball autographs, though. I'm giving some of them out, though, at the Shreveport Card Show this weekend. Don't forget. It is going to be a ball, as the kids would say. The diamond's going to be there, man. Crazy. I think Ole Miss wins. I do. Chambliss's final numbers tonight: 30 of 46 for 362, 2 touchdowns, no picks, 90.7 QBR. Once again, if he played the entire season or if he beat Georgia earlier in the year, he is easily winning the Heisman Trophy, which is crazy to say considering Mendoza had the 5th highest vote total in Heisman history. Golding said in the postgame interview, oh, did he really say this? All credit goes to Lane Kiffin, Bill Glasscock, and these offensive coaches for getting us here. God, Trinidad was good tonight, though, man. It's not just the circus plays, though. It's just all the little things. James Craig back at LSU. Pretty excited about that. We bring a 2019 LSU coach back who's part of the Ole Miss operation now. It's going to be wild, man. All right, y'all. It is time to skedaddle. Big thanks to all our super chatters and new members. Don't forget to sign up for the YouTube membership. It's a good way to support. You get extra film studies and all of that. But at the same time, you're also, just showing some love to the best LSU football YouTube channel on the planet Earth. There's other good ones. Big thanks to Doug, Forever LSU, Clifford, Sibley, as always, Bayou Rat, otherwise known as Roby and Mobile. I might be at Mobile in a few weeks, Roby. Hit me up. You got my email. It is Power Hour LSU. Boom. Tonight we are doing black-eyed peas and cabbage. You know it. Let's go.